Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with coverage of round 6 of Tata Steel 2021. Let's first have a look at the standings after the 5th round. Niels Grandelius from Sweden is leading the Tata Steel tournament with 3.5 points out of 5 games. Followed by 4 players half a point behind him: Carlsen, Giri, Caruana and Hare Krishna. 4 players on 50%, Van Foreest, Wojtaszek, Yesipenko and Ferrugia. 4 players on -1, Vachier Lagrave, Anton Guijarro, Tari and Duda. And Alexander Donchenko from Germany is in bottom place with 3 draws and 2 losses. The pairings for round 6, Vachier Lagrave against Tari, Van Foreest, Anton Guijarro, Donchenko Ferrugia, Duda Carlsen, Hare Krishna Wojtaszek, Yesipenko Giri and Grandelius against Caruana. We're going to have a look at the game Van Foreest against Anton Guijarro, not because these 2 players are at the top of the table, but it was a very exciting game. Here we see both players at the board, Van Foreest on the left, Anton Guijarro on the right. Van Foreest is probably only in the tournament because of his nationality. He is Dutch and the tournament is held in the Netherlands. But he's doing very well so far. He's on 50%, already had some very strong opponents. For example, he drew Carlsen with black. Jordan Van Foreest is coming from a real chess family. 5 of his siblings are also into chess. Jordan is the eldest, his younger brother Lucas is also a grandmaster, and then they have a girl called Machteld who is rising up the rankings in a women's game. I was lucky to play a game against one of the Van Foreest brothers in 2017. The game ended in a draw, but no, it was not against one of the 2 grandmaster brothers. Van Foreest white, Anton Guijarro black. It is the 22nd of January 2021. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and we get the Ruy Lopez on the board. Let's put some moves on the board. Bishop e7 and now rook e1 is the main move here, but d3 was played by Van Foreest, a sideline. b5, kicking the bishop back, d6 and c3, preparing d3, d4, but as we'll see, Van Foreest postpones this move for a while. Black castled and h3. Jordan Van Foreest talked in his interview after the game about his strategy before the game. He had recently played 2 games against Anton Guijarro and lost 1 and drew 1 in endgames. And he decided that he wanted to keep as many pieces as possible on the board in this game and get a complex fight that would suit his style more than Anton Guijarro's style. h6 was played by black on the 9th move, a4, bishop d7, bishop c2, b4, the knight got developed, rook e8, a5, bishop back to f8, rook e1 centralizing the rook, rook b8, and d4. Finally Van Foreest decides to get a stronger foothold in the center. Anton Guijarro took on c3, b takes, e takes, c takes and knight b4. Attacking the bishop on c2, so bishop b1 was played, preserving the light squared bishop, which is an important piece in this opening for white, as Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky explained in a live broadcast. g6, a common idea to put the king's bishop on g7, putting pressure on the long diagonal. Rook a3, a nice move, and that is also a common idea in the Ruy Lopez. The rook gets out of the firing line of the bishop on g7 and prepares centralizing that rook to e3, where it supports the e4, e5 push. Bishop g7 as planned. Knight f1, rerouting the knight to g3, also a common idea in the Ruy Lopez. And rook b5, and we see the point of this move on the next move. Knight g3 is planned, and now knight h5 to challenge that knight on g3. Van Foreest took, and now we see the point. Black takes back with the rook to make sure his pawns do not get shattered on the king side. And now a very important move, d4, d5 on move 23 by Van Foreest. And as Naroditsky explained, this is a move you make with clenched teeth. You don't really want to give the dark squares to black, and it's opening the bishop on g7. But for the moment that bishop is shooting into thin air. It's a beautiful bishop, but if there's nothing to attack, the bishop doesn't do much. Van Foreest talked after the game about the rook on h5 being offside. And it's true that that rook, for the moment, is not doing much from its unusual posts. Also, knight b4 is not a very happy piece, so white has an edge here. What you do have to look at is, because the rook is on the king side, are there any sacrifices in the position against white's king? What about bishop takes h3? Well, it doesn't work now, because after g takes, rook takes, you can play king g2 attacking the rook, queen c8 protecting the rook, and then there is knight h2, and we see how good that rook on a3 is. From a3, the rook is helping out the king. Let's look at one other option for black to sacrifice something and get an attack against white's king. What about queen c8 first, to prepare it? Well, the computer is not worried about black's attack and calmly attacks the knight with bishop d2. And if we then go for the attack with the bishop takes h3, then you should not take the bishop straight away, because then queen takes h3 and black is winning. But after bishop takes h3, you have the very nice move knight h2, and this is good for white. The piece is hanging, the knight is hanging. Black's sacrifice did not work. So let's go back to the game. d5 was played and taking on h3 is not good. Anton Guijarro played c5 and bishop f4. Black's last move gives the knight protection, but it weakens the d6 pawn. White could have played d takes c6 en passant instead, but that only helps the knight back into the game. That is not as strong. So bishop f4 was Van Foreest's move. Bishop b2 attacking the rook. Rook a2 e3 and queen f6. Attacking the bishop, defending the pawn, and Van Foreest played the bishop back to g3. And now c5, c4, that is black's trump card, the c-pawn. White is better here, as Grandmaster Naroditsky explained. His pieces are better coordinated and black has a weak pawn on d6. White has the idea of breaking through with e4, e5. Black has a c-pawn, as mentioned, and also white's king is safer than black's. And the bishop takes h3 sacrifice option is no longer a real option now that white's bishop is close to his king. The white king has lots of defenders around now, so that sacrifice is no longer dangerous. White played queen e2 after c5, c4 from black. And if you now keep pushing that pawn, there is queen c4 attacking the knight. If you play rook b8 protecting the knight, there is queen c7, and this is a good position for white. So after queen e2, Anton Guijarro decided against c4, c3. His pawn is attacked, so he played bishop b5 to protect it. And now, look at this move. On the 28th move, Van Foreest played e4, e5. And that square is now attacked 5 times and defended 5 times. It makes you think of a term from the books of the great Aaron Nimzowitsch. He talked about überdecken, to protect a vital piece or square many times. And this is a very complex position. Grandmaster Naroditsky called it absolute chaos on the board. One important point here is that you cannot take with the pawn, which you would like to do, because then suddenly your bishop on b2 is unprotected. It was protected by the queen, but now that the pawn is there, the queen no longer protects b2. And that's why in this position, Anton Guijarro took with the bishop. Knight takes, d takes, bishop takes, and here black's queen is attacked, and a move like queen d8 is not that good because of bishop c3, and this is much better for white. His bishops are beautiful, his heavy pieces are tripled on the e-file. Black's army is in disarray. It looks like a toddler put the black pieces on the board randomly. It is understandable that Anton Guijarro decided not to go for this one. What did he do instead? He decided to sacrifice the exchange, and that is indeed black's best chance. Rook e takes e5, sacrifice the exchange because white took on e5, and now c3. It's attacking the queen, and it's threatening c3, c2, that it was black's idea of the exchange sacrifice, and indeed it was his best chance. Queen e3, the queen has to keep the rook on e5 protected, and there comes c2, one step away from promotion. Van Foreest took on h5, shattering the protection of black's king, which, with queen and rook on the board for white, is a big factor in this position. You have to recapture. And let's look at this position. White is the exchange up, but has to give up the bishop for the c-pawn. And he did so straight away. Bishop takes c2, knight takes c2. That is not really a fork, because, for example, the queen can get out of the attack by giving a check on g3, but Van Foreest played queen e5 instead. If you swap the queens as black, then there is knight d4. Black has to coordinate his minor pieces to deal with the d-pawn. d6, and now knight e6 is not possible because of a very surprising move from white. He's sacrificing his rook on b5. Yes, black has been able to stop the d-pawn, but not the a-pawn. After a takes b5, a6, that pawn goes through to queen. So that after queen e5 and then swapping the queens. In the game, Anton Guijarro defended his queen with king g7. Rook e4, this is move 36, and in this unpleasant position and in time trouble, black blunders. He played bishop b5 to d3, and if you want to look for the refutation, it is not very difficult. Put the video on pause and see if you can find the move that white played, which caused black to resign on the spot. Van Foreest, of course, did not miss it. Queen g3 is a double attack. Check, and an attack on that bishop, which went to that very unfortunate square. Here Anton Guijarro resigned. After a move like queen g5, you lose that bishop, and you only have one check. King h2, and that d-pawn will go through. There's nothing more to play here for black. Great win from Jordan van Foreest, his first win in the tournament, and he is now on +1. Anton Guijarro is having a tough tournament now. He is on -2. The results of round 6, Vachier-Lagrave-Tari was a draw. Van Foreest beat Anton Guijarro, we saw that game. Alireza Firouzja won his second game this tournament by beating Donchenko, who's at the bottom of the table. And then we had 4 draws. Duda Carlsen, Hare Krishna Wojtaszek, Yesipenko Giri and Grandelius Caruana all ended undecided. And that leads to these standings. Grandelius still leading the Tata Steel tournament with +2. 6 players now half a point behind him. Carlsen, Giri, Caruana, Hare Krishna and the 2 players who won today, Van Foreest and Firouzja. Only 2 players on 50% now, Wojtaszek and Yesipenko. Vachier-Lagrave-Tari and Duda have -1. Anton Guijarro is on -2 and Donchenko, after 3 good draws, lost his 3rd game of the tournament. Round 7 will be played on Saturday the 23rd of January, and these are the pairings. Caruana Vachier-Lagrave, Giri Grandelius, Wojtaszek, Yesipenko, Carlsen Hare Krishna, Firouzja Duda, Anton Guijarro against Donchenko and Tari Van Foreest. I will be here after the round to tell you what happened. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel and please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.